Yo, what's up? Welcome to Kinda Funny Games Daily for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr. Joining me is Jerica, aka Jerica Hannah. Jerica,
Hi.
how's it going?
So good. Ready to talk about games with you.
Thanks so much.
The whole hour? We got
we got an
okay,
hour
cool.
talking about video games.
Nice.
And we got a fun hour because, of course, a Nintendo Direct was announced. So most of the show is going to be us talking about our hopes and dreams and hype for Nintendo Direct. But before we get there, I want to know about you because I'm sure the bulk of the audience might not know who you are. I'm sure plenty of people out there who have their ears to the ground do know who you are.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know, who is Jerica?
I'm Jerica. I've been playing video games before I could read. That's a true story. I remember my mother having to navigate like menus and like you'd put in like I guess pick what level you wanted to play on, and I had to have my mother help me with that.
What were some of those games?
It's sort of embarrassing, but it was a fishing game for the Sega Genesis.
Okay. I mean, honestly, I feel like back then when you were a kid, you play whatever you can get.
I was literally playing whatever my mother could find. So, but I played a lot of Sonic as a child.
Hell yeah.
So, you know, I was a Sega kid growing up.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy long walks on the beach, maybe shorter ones, not long ones. I don't like sand in my feet or in my toes. But yeah, I eat a breakfast burrito occasionally. I'm a simple gal, you know, playing games, hanging out with my dog and my girlfriend. But
Heck
yeah.
Awesome. And you also are a big Kinda Funny listener,
Yes,
right? Which is one of the big reasons why you're here. Is I believe about a year or so ago, Greg did the rounds of doing the community podcast.
Yeah.
And your podcast was one of the podcasts that he hopped on. And you know the story better than I do because I've only heard it like tangentially from Greg mentioning it. But I believe you happened to be in town.
Yeah, there you go.
You hit up Greg, and Greg was like, "Oh, come on through." And also, if you're gonna come through, host KFGD for a couple of days.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising. I was like, okay, I'll try my best. But yeah, like I have a podcast as well. I think that's sort of how I got into everything, and really just, you know, I was lucky to interview Greg on that, and that was fun.
What's the name of your podcast?
JK Games Podcast.
Where people can find
Oh yeah, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere.
at JK
Twitch,
Games Podcast.
At JK Games Podcast, yes. But my co-host Kayla, me and her talk about games every other week because we also have full-time jobs too, so it's really hard. You know, I'm gonna speak from, you know, I'm sure a lot of listeners, viewers can agree. Like, you know, I love doing this for fun, and it takes all the other time that you have. So when you play games and want to talk about them, it can also get exhausting, even when you love it so much. But we love it so much that we catch up every other week to talk about what we've been playing, and really just the news that matters to us each and every week. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So like it's so fun hearing you talk about this because immediately it brings me back to doing OKBs because you mentioned having a full-time job, and before I was working at Kinda Funny, right? I did OKBs on the side. That was my own website and podcast and YouTube channel that, you know, I was working on with friends, and it was that similar thing of we love talking about video games so much, and we had such a passion for making content and like hanging out that we would dedicate I was going to say Thursdays, because Thursdays is when we shot the podcast, but really it was like every weekday because we did podcasts, we did video essays on YouTube, we did articles, we would do the whole thing. And that was entirely our free time, right? And that came about because, you know, we were all big fans of video game content in general. Like I was listening to so much Kinda Funny. I know Alex Van Aken was as well. But then also we watched Giant Bomb and Game Informer and these different spots that we ended up finding jobs at, right? And we ended up like infiltrating the industry. And so yeah, it's really awesome to hear that, you know, you make content on the side. How long have you been doing this podcast?
Me and Kayla have been doing the show for 3 years now, and recently, like if you go and look at some of our latest stuff, where we took a little bit of a break because at the beginning of the year we actually did a show just recapping The Last of Us HBO because we're big Last of Us fans.
Hell yeah!
So we had to go through, and we you'll see it if you follow us on Twitter. It's called Clickerbait. One of my
that's really good.
It's
that's
pretty
really
good. One of my friends of our show, Todd, actually came up with that title, and so I got to give him some credit. But it was a new sort of project for us because we never recapped a TV show. And it's a whole different type of way of talking about, like, I guess, because we're not playing it, we're just watching it and, like, trying to predict what people would think about the show that have maybe not played the games. So that was good. So definitely should check it out.
So JK Games Podcast is like your main thing. You have Clickerbait as well. Do you have other stuff as well? Like, is this an outlet? Do you have a family of content going on, or
It seems to be growing. I don't know where these children of shows are coming from, but could be one day. But right now, those are the 2 shows that we are currently producing.
hell yeah? And so, more questions for you, which now
Okay.
this is turning into an interview. But
I'm ready.
do you have a goal? Like, do you have I want to get hired someday, or is this just a passion? Is this something that you are doing because you love doing it in the free time?
I think yes to both of those things. Obviously, like I love it so much, and just in my free time, like I love geeking out about the news and like the niche things that only our community would want to talk about. And it's just always fun to predict and get hyped about games that are coming out, that have been out. And then just with The Last of Us, honestly, between me and Kayla, we're just such big fans, and with the plethora of things that are hopefully coming with The Last of Us, we just want to sort of capitalize on that and sort of do. We talked about The Last of Us so much on our show. We're like, okay, we need a separate avenue to talk about The Last of Us.
That's similar to OK Beasts. Our friends would make fun of us. I think Barrett was probably included in making fun of us for this, but we would launch a billion podcasts because we would realize that, like, one, it was good for separating out conversation, and like basically what we would do is if there was a big video game release, and this is me giving y'all free game if y'all want to steal this, but when there would be like a big new release, we would start a podcast about it. And so when Breath of the Wild came out, we started a podcast called Breath of the Wild. And when Mario Odyssey came out, we started a podcast called New Donk City Radio, and we would call them limited run podcasts because
what was the Apex Legends one?
I think it was Jump Masters.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay,
because it was a playoff of the Jump Master.
Y'all
thing,
were coming
right?
out with a new podcast every other week.
Oh yeah, I think we had an Anthem podcast as well.
No,
Okay.
not Anthem.
Yeah, we had an Anthem
So-
podcast. And our first one that we did was Overwatched, which terrible name, but it was us getting started. Like 2016 was the Apex Evolve, no pun intended. But we would do it because turns out people who are big fans of a singular game, right? Like they don't necessarily want to listen to a video game podcast that's recapping news or recapping like a different thing. They want to listen to something that is about that specific thing that they love. And so, yeah, I think the fact that you guys are doing a Last of Us recap podcast, very smart, but also, yeah, helps to have deeper and better conversations about this thing that you want to talk about and this thing that you love. And so, again, free game for people out there. Great way to get engagement, and then also like a fun way to just make more content. If you're crazy and want to make a billion pieces of content. But Jerica, what is another question for you? Right?
Okay.
Again, I want to give you all the free promo as possible.
Let's go.
What is the one episode or the one piece of content from you guys that people should check out if they want to check out JK Games?
I really, there's a few, but some of our most popular episodes are actually going to be like, we have like segments, and they're, I think we called them console chatter, and we go back and just reminisce about, because me and Kayla have a little bit of an age difference between us. So I grew up playing like Sega, I had my N64. And for her, it's like
She's
the
playing Super
GameCube.
Famicom.
The GameCube.
Oh, okay,
no,
so
no,
she's
no.
young.
Yeah, she's a little bit younger than me.
You guys are like the Greg and Blessing.
Yeah, basically. So I have to educate her with some of the games of the elders.
I love that in your case, like N64 is the elders.
Yeah, right.
Because like I get called young for being like, oh yeah, I love the N64 was my first console.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Greg's out here playing Pong on his first console.
But yeah, we have a console chatter episodes are one of the popular ones, and we talk about GameCube, Sega I think was one of those in there, Dreamcast even. And then on top of that, I like to have guests on our show. So like we have a plethora of friends that also like talk about games, and some of our most popular episodes are ones also with our friend Josh. He is our Nintendo expert. I have to have him on all the time to talk about Nintendo. But just really, and we usually have like a costume that, with Mario, he was dressed as Mario. We have a new show that we're going to produce in a couple of weeks, I hope. That's him explaining Final Fantasy. Just a blanket statement, just helping
What is this? What's going on in this franchise?
I have played Final Fantasy. I've played a few games, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm not the best at explaining what is a Final Fantasy game. But he is an expert at that as well.
I don't think the creators of Final Fantasy are good at explaining what a Final Fantasy game is, and so yeah, like that makes sense. My one last question before we get into the show, and this is the question that I try to ask every guest that we have on.
Okay.
What is your favorite game of all time?
It's gonna have to be. I thought about you. You sort of prefaced me with this, and obviously, like I love The Last of Us, but my favorite game of all time, and it's the trilogy, is Mass Effect. The whole trilogy is my favorite. I can't really pick one of.
But
them.
if you had to,
oh God, I'd have to say the first one just because they laid such a great foundation of what that story is, and they really like separated themselves from, I don't know, the other sci-fi games that were maybe out at the time. And it was just so cool to be able to make my own Commander Shepard and make all the decisions. You know, I can never be a renegade. I can never be bad, but I want to so bad, but I just can't. I can't let that happen.
I feel that. Mass Effect, great choice. I played Mass Effect for the first time, like a year or two ago. Whenever they put out the Legendary Edition, I played Mass Effect for the first time.
I'm so glad a lot of other people got to play
and
finally.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, and I still got to go back and finish Mass Effect 2 because I got halfway to it. But that might be to your point, that Mass Effect 1 might be the best. Because it was so easy to get through. I enjoyed it. But Jerica, enough about Mass Effect. Enough about you. Let's talk about Nintendo, because today's stories included Nintendo Direct is happening, your predictions for it, and more, because this is Kinda Funny Games Daily. Each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on youtube.com/kindafunnygames and twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. If you're watching live, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong by going to kindafunny.com/you're wrong. If you don't want to watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindafunnygames, or you can listen later on podcast services around the globe by searching for Kinda Funny Games Daily. Remember, you can use Epic creator code KindaFunny on all Epic Store and Epic in-game purchases like Rocket League and Fortnite to help support the channel. To be a part of the show, head to kindafunny.com/KFGD to get you to write in with your questions, squad ups, and more. And remember, patreon.com/KindaFunny will get you the show ad-free, plus a bevy of bonus content. Housekeeping for you. A new episode of The Blessing Show is premiering today at 11 a.m. Pacific time, right after this episode of Kinda Funny Games Daily. It's all about PlayStation's live service games. It's the season finale, wrapping up this year's episode, so tune in at 11 a.m. on the dot for a jam-packed episode. If you're watching this live right now, of course, we're gonna get to the end of this episode, and then we're gonna just usher right into the Blessing Show episode. Barrett's got his finger on the redirect button, but also just click over and watch it just in case that doesn't work, right? Like, let's all watch it together.
YouTube kids, hopefully the redirect works and it just takes you right to the Blessing Show. And Twitch kids, you can just stay where you are, because we'll also play it live for y'all on Twitch.
Yeah, but also if you're on Twitch, just give us the click. Give us the view. Just click over, give us the view, and then watch it on Twitch, and then hang out with the stream.
Watch it on both
afterwards,
and have audios from both videos playing at the same time.
Just make it a game for yourself. See if you can sync up the audios from both tabs and have it sound like I'm just one super being of voice audio coming through at you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Barrett? You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And then, of course, the Blessing Show is fun. The Blessing Show is a great time. But if you want to have a really great time, tomorrow, Wednesday, June 21st, the Kinda Funny Xcast will host Todd Howard from Bethesda Game Studios to talk all things Starfield. If you want to get involved and ask any questions to Todd about the game, write in to kindafunny.com/Xcast. Heck yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool.
It's very cool.
I wish PS Love you can do cool things like that. The only person we can get is Greg Miller for some reason. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Casey Andrew, Delaney Twining, and James Hastings. Today we're brought to you by BetterHelp, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin with what is, and forever will be, the Roper Report. It's time for some news. We have 4 stories today.
A baker's dozen.
Starting with our number one. One, it's great to see chat popping off for Todd Howard, as they should. Todd Howard, aka God Howard, is what they call him in the streets.
Nice.
Every now and then he releases a Fallout 76 and then they call him Todd Howard. But this will be his God Howard moment, you would hope, for Starfield. And so welcome back, God Howard. Story number 1, a new Nintendo Direct is happening tomorrow. This is tweeted by @NintendoAmerica on Twitter this morning. They tweeted out, tune in on June 21st at 7 a.m. Pacific time for a Nintendo Direct live stream featuring roughly 40 minutes of information focused mainly on Nintendo Switch titles launching this year, including new details on Pikmin 4. Jerica, how excited are you for a new Nintendo Direct?
I'm excited because this one is, around it's Game Fest time or the end of it, but it is around that time. So I hope it is going to be like a big showcase to what could also come this year. So I know they mentioned Pikmin 4, which I'm also really excited for. I love Pikmin. Like, I haven't played one in a while. I know that sounds like, hey, how can you be a fan when you haven't played one in a while? I haven't played one it hasn't had any kind of Switch, I guess, remaster or anything like that. So I'm just excited to be able to play it on my Switch. But yeah, I hope we have a surprise that's for something that comes this year. What
would that surprise be for you? Because that's what I've been trying to rack my brain with, right? Is what could come through this year from Nintendo that would feel like a substantial fall title? Because, you mentioned that we got Pikmin coming through, right? Pikmin is coming out in July. There's Pokemon DLC. But then other than that, we don't really have much from Nintendo announced for this year. Is there anything that comes to mind for what could hit in 2023?
I would actually like what my hope would be that we see some kind of. So I recently got into Tears of the Kingdom. I hear that's a pretty good game.
It's decent. It's all right.
And I'm sure I'm going to be playing that for the rest of the year. But ultimately, I'm having such a good time with it. And I've played a few Zelda titles, but one of my favorites is Wind Waker, and I still can't play that on my Switch. So it's not like a big hype moment, but for me, like being able to play Wind Waker on the Switch would be a really good and hype announcement for me, or at least maybe do what they did with, was it the Mario 3D, like
the Super Mario 3D All-Stars?
I don't know if they do something like that with Zelda, or
that would
just
be so sick.
That's what I'd like to see. Or if I need Wind Waker.
Because I think the big things are Wind Waker and Twilight Princess.
Yep.
Those are the games that came to Wii U. They have HD versions of those games already.
Mainline games that are not available to play on Switch.
It will make so much sense, now that we're past Tears of the Kingdom and we're going into a fall, and we don't. There's a lot of questions we have with Nintendo right now. In fact, I'm going to bring in a question from Manic Pixel, who writes in to kindafunny.com/KFGD, just like you can, and says, "Hey gang, we have a Nintendo Direct coming tomorrow. Where are we putting our hype levels for this? It feels like the Switch is winding down, but Nintendo is on a come up at the moment. Is tomorrow going to make the case for Nintendo's future, however that looks? Or is this just going to announce a couple of games to keep some level of momentum while they set the table for the future?" And I think that is where I'm at with this, is what is going to be the purpose of this Nintendo Direct? That's usually how I go into any sort of showcase with, in terms of setting my expectation. What is this going to do? For a lot of these Summer Game Fest / E3 season showcases, I go into them thinking, okay, you're going to set the table for the rest of the year. You're going to set the tone. You're going to lay out what the next 12 months looks like for your platform, right? For Nintendo, what really is the next 12 months? Are we going to get a next iteration of a Switch or a new console generation, let's say by this time next year? And if that's the case, are you then trying to wind down? Is it going to be filler stuff because you're saving the big hitters for whenever that new console hits, right? Is it going to be, the Twilight Princesses and the Wind Wakers of the world? Is it going to be Pikmin? Is it going to be, do we get a Metroid Prime 4? Because that would be the big exciting thing. Or do we see that wait until later for maybe they do make that a cross-gen thing or a launch title for the next Switch? Those are the questions I have. I'm going into this with tempered expectations because I don't know, man. Nintendo Directs can be weird. Them talking about, it's Nintendo, right? But them talking about it being, them talking about this year, right? We're focused mainly on Nintendo Switch titles launching this year. That means we're going to get some shit for next year.
Yeah.
Like, that's always what Nintendo does, is they say this year and then they give us a few titles for next year. I guess my question to you is, do you have any managing of expectations? Is there do you feel like there's a cap in terms of what hype could be for this thing, for where Nintendo's at?
For me personally, I don't think I'm going to be jumping off the counter, saying oh my God, that was so amazing. I think the next, speaking to your point with, the potential of a new console at some point could be a nice reveal here. But to your point too, also just the games, are they waiting to release and promote those games closer to that launch of the new console? But really, I could see a new Mario this year. I
would love it so much.
I could see that being a surprise. But what's coming next year, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's tough because I think regarding a new console, I don't think we get that at a direct, right? I think by the time we get that announced, it would be a specified, hey, we are doing a new console announcement, or we wake up one morning and there's just a big new commercial that is the same as the Switch commercial, where it's people playing a thing on a console and then they pop it out and it's oh shit, it's an iPad. Oh, that's really cool. I think it would be one of those. I would be surprised if we got a big announcement like that for a direct that also is them saying, hey, and you'll get more details on Pikmin. I think if we're gonna get something as big as a console, they wouldn't even preface with that. I think they would be hey, tune into this direct. Of course, I asked the world out there about their Nintendo Direct predictions, right? I put out a tweet, and a lot of you guys wrote in. A lot of you guys have a lot to say about what to expect at this Nintendo Direct, and so I brought in quite a few write-ins into the doc, and I want to start with Kyle Best, who wrote in and says, Xenoblade Chronicles X is still trapped and suffering in imprisonment on the Wii U. The time has come for Nintendo to set that beauty free on the Switch. Also, I feel a shadow drop of Metroid Prime 2 in my bones. How do you feel? Are you a Xenoblade Chronicles person?
I'm not. No, I know nothing about it. I just know it looks really cool. It looks like something I should try, but haven't played it.
Do you? Where do you stand on the Wii U ports, right? Because that's been a big thing with the Switch over the years. Nintendo's done a pretty great job of taking games from that platform, porting them onto the Switch, and giving us the definitive versions of those. As we've gotten further, it feels like we're running out of Wii U titles, but Xenoblade Chronicles X would be a big one, right? I could see it.
If that's what people are wanting, then yes. Like, if I to be honest, like, I didn't realize as much was available for the Wii U. To be completely transparent, like I bought the Wii U to play Wind Waker. That was the reason I got it. So it is surprising that there's still games that we don't have available to play on the Switch yet, like from older generations.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 2 is also a very interesting one. I believe the rumors have been that Metroid Prime Remastered, the one that we just got, was the one that Nintendo was putting in the work for, and that was going to be hey, this is a remaster, but also it's kind of a remake because we're really going in and prettying this thing up. From what people have talked about with Metroid Prime 2, it seems like that might be more of a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 bundle that is straight up more of a port than what they did for Metroid Prime. And so I would expect that. I would think that. But also, if they did that, that's where I start thinking, oh, maybe Metroid Prime 4 is coming sooner than we thought.
Yeah.
If, you're going to do the back-to-back Metroid drops. That would make me think that maybe we get Metroid Prime 4 either this fall or next year.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. So.
Ghost Hand 7 writes in to kindafunny.com/KFGD and says, hey, KFGD hosts, rumors are stating a new 2D Mario and a new SNES remake a la Live Alive. What would be your SNES remake once? Chrono Trigger aside, I would want a Link to the Past similar to Link's Awakening.
No.
Barrett immediately says no.
You can't redo A Link to the Past art style. It is so fucking beautiful, even to this day. If you're going to remake it, do it more like an HD 2D kind of situation. I don't want that beautiful pixel art to be translated
to Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening remake, which is a very cute art style, don't get me wrong, but there's just something special about Link to the Past. Yeah. But also, give me fucking Chrono Trigger. Give it to me, Bless.
That's my thing, is my two answers for what I'd want out of a SNES remake would be Chrono Trigger in the HD 2D style or Earthbound in the HD 2D style. I know Nintendo owns Earthbound, and so that's a weird thing, but there could be a situation where they partner with Square Enix on it to make it happen, and I think that would be a beautiful universe to live in. I would absolutely love an Earthbound remake. For you, are there any SNES remakes that you want?
Strangely enough, like I have always, this is technically on the N64, but its original was on SNES, was Pilot Wings.
Oh shit.
Like I remember playing that so much. Even on my Super Nintendo or N64, both of them. I like aviation games. Like that is a side note for me. I'd love to learn to like fly a plane. That'd be really cool.
This is a huge sidebar.
I know. Sorry.
I'm about to take us into a very different direction. This morning, as I was prepping KHD, I get a text in my friend group chat. And it's my friend Sarah, and Sarah's like, "Hey, for the men in this group chat, if you're on a plane and somebody came to you and asked you, hey, can you land this plane?" And you have the assistance of somebody, like people on the ground, like flight assistants, like walking you through it. Do you think you could land that plane? And immediately I was like, yes. Do you think you could do that?
Absolutely. I do. I played a lot of Flight Simulator, so
I was like 100%. My friend Yusuf, who's in the chat, also was like, "Yeah, like if somebody's walking me through it for sure." And then all the women in the chat were like, "No, like that is male toxicity at its finest." But I'm like, if somebody's coaching me through it,
yeah,
it's buttons and levers. I can figure this shit out.
We've played games forever.
That's what I'm saying.
It's similar.
We got buttons and levers in here, Bless. I can walk you through how to run a show.
That's what I'm saying. Like, put me in the cockpit. Like, let me land that goddamn plane.
At the same time, I don't know if I want you in this cockpit. I'm gonna be honest.
Bear, do you think you can land a plane if somebody's on the ground walking you through it on
no.
radio?
Come on, man.
Oh,
you could do it.
I'm too stressed out enough to run a show here.
I guess you also have.
I'm not flying a plane into like in control of people's lives. Are you insane?
Okay, but let's say they take out the passengers. This is just you on this plane.
It's just me.
It's just you on this plane.
Pilot's got to go down with the ship.
I'm landing that thing, man. I'm landing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad we solved this.
That'd be pretty dope.
Skywalk writes in to kindafunny.com/KHD and says, Bless asks for predictions for Nintendo Direct. I am here with clown makeup in my briefcase to predict that Hollow Knight Silk Song will have a nice little release date revealed. Jerica, do you believe it?
There's always a chance. I would love for it to be there finally to know if it's coming out this year. Just because it is one of my picks. We do the fantasy critic.
Oh yeah, it was my number one pick.
Yeah,
also.
it's my number one too. And
And
what's funny,
we're both screwed here. It's not coming out this year.
I was like, I really need it to come out so I could win, or get caught up. So I mean, once again, I think there's always a chance. I like to stay optimistic.
I'm gonna say no, not a chance. And like this comes from just the fact that not that long ago, the dev mentioned that they're taking longer on the game than expected, and I don't think it's not going to come out this year. Like I don't think it's impossible for them to come out and say, hey, no, we've nailed it. It's coming out this fall. But I don't know if they put a date on it soon after being like, hey, we need more time on this. I think they don't put a date on it until they're definitely sure. And yeah, like I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a fun surprise, but I'll be very surprised if we saw it. Psychro Retros writes in and says, the trend has shown that the earlier Direct is in the day here in the States, the more Japanese focused the Direct will be. So my prediction is that there will be way too many JRPGs for one presentation, and there will be one big game that pops the fans in the West. My prediction and hope is something Mario platformer related, 3D or 2D, I don't care. So this is an interesting one. That's one that I thought about a little bit too. The fact that this Direct is happening earlier in the day than I'd personally like, because I've gotten word from Tim Geddes that he's working on it. He's trying to figure out if we're gonna react on it. But it seems like he says yes, we're working out the details. But yes, we're gonna react to this Nintendo Direct tomorrow. And so yeah, when it's happening at 7 a.m., it makes me wonder how directed toward the West it could be. But yeah, like regarding a Mario platformer, I think that would be the slam dunk.
Yeah.
You're coming off of the Mario movie. There's all this Mario hype in the world. It's been a while since we've gotten a big new Mario game, right? Mario Odyssey was 2017, and then quite a few years ago, we got the Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, which is a really cool thing. I feel like it's time for a new mainline Mario.
It is time. I could definitely see that coming out later this year, around the holidays. That'd be a good time, right?
Do you have a preference between 2D and 3D?
Nope, I don't care. I'll play any Mario game. Once again, also not a great historian when it comes to talking about Mario, but I love the games.
Heck yeah. Bull Borden writes in and says, please, for the love of God, give me the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess ports. It's all I've wanted for years. But more realistically, we'll probably get Tears of the Kingdom DLC. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom DLC. Do you think we see it?
Oh, I mean, we could, but for me personally, I hope not, because it's still taking me forever to beat it. There's a lot of I feel like when I play Breath of the Wild, like obviously a lot to do in that game too, but I feel like Tears of the Kingdom has now been multiplied by 3 times much stuff. So I don't know, like, is there a need for DLC this soon, or are they just trying to like ride the coattails of it as possible?
I can see an argument both ways. I think people expect DLC because Breath of the Wild had DLC.
Yep.
And like they had 2 drops for DLC that year after Breath of the Wild.
I remember the motorcycle.
Yeah, and the motorcycle was so cool. And I remember like I really liked, I believe it was the Champions Ballad. That was the whole new quest and the whole new dungeon and stuff that you got at the end of that year. I love that. I thought that was pretty cool. And so I think there's the expectation, but yeah, I'm with you that Tears of the Kingdom has so much content in it already, and it feels so complete. And I'm sure if you really wanted to, you can add more stuff to it. But what does that do a service to Tears of the Kingdom? Does Tears of the Kingdom really need more content when it is already so content filled? I could see maybe if you want to add more to the depths. I think the depths is like the one thing where I'm like, I really like the depths, but
I do too.
I could see the case that it might be lacking for unique content a little bit. They have some quests down there, but there's so much more you can fit in there, and so I think that could be cool.
That'd be a really good. Yeah, I'm down. You've
Depths
sold me.
of the Kingdom. So
yeah, that
don't let me name something, but like,
well, that sounds perfect to me.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, I think there's a chance. I think it'd be cool to see Tears of the Kingdom DLC.
I do think at this point it's more likely that we see Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I think Breath of the Wild DLC got announced pretty early.
Yes. I think it might have been before
the game even came out.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah. And they didn't get revealed of what the DLCs were until I think like Game Awards or whatever. But Yeah, I feel like if they were gonna do DLC, they would have. And it
Well,
took them.
the DLC. So the DLC came out pretty quickly because it was Breath of the Wild came out in the spring. The first pack of the DLC came out in the summer, and then the Champions Ballad was like
That
at
winter.
Game Awards. Because I think
Yeah, I
Game
remember
Awards
that.
was where they like announced
I
and like
remember that
released it
vividly,
shortly
'cause
after.
They announced it, and then the next day I had to go into work at IGN and be like, "All right, I've already like captured and recorded all this gameplay for the new Zelda stuff." So yeah.
Yeah, and people are saying a month before launch is when we got the
Gotcha.
DLC
Okay.
announcement, and so because you had to buy like a season pass type deal for it too if you wanted all the DLC with it, and so yeah, that's the other thing is them not announcing DLC already. Does that mean we're not going to get DLC? I think there's a chance of that, but we shall see. Last one for this though, we got a fun little activity here from Kirkland who writes in, and they write in with a fact or cap for me and you, Jerica.
Okay.
They have a list of things. And I believe the only options we can give for each of these predictions is a factor cap.
Okay.
All right. So they start off with a Pikmin 4 deep dive, main focus of the show. I think
That's fact.
I would say fact.
Yes,
Right. Like they said as much that we'll see Pikmin there. Pikmin is their next big release. I would think that that is the main focus, and we get some sort of deep dive because we've already seen plenty of Pikmin. I feel like we just got a trailer where they showed off the character creator. If they're gonna have Pikmin here, then they're gonna get in the Duffy and they're gonna show us some nitty gritty details. Next up. No less than 6 Stardew Valley / Harvest Moon / Animal Crossing style games shown.
That's a lot. I feel like that's a lot.
How many were at that fall Nintendo Direct where we were making fun of it that there were so many farm games? Because I don't think it couldn't have been more than 6, right? I'm gonna say cap on that one.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Square Enix reveals an unannounced JRPG along with 2 of the aforementioned farming games. JRPG from the 90s gets the Live Alive treatment.
I don't know enough about this one to give. I don't know.
I'm gonna say fact.
Okay.
I think we get like maybe a 2D HD game, and then we get one of the phrases that comes up pretty frequently during these reactions is that Square Enix just be making games. They just be putting stuff out, and I swear at every direct they announce a new title where I'm like, that's not a real game. That's not a real title. What they gave us like Everyday Life last year. They gave us hella games. I'm gonna say yes. We get one of those. Okay. We get multiple of those. In fact, I think we get multiple of those. Next up, we have ads for no less than 5 games already released. It depends on how you define ads. Because I don't think
promotions, right? Or
yeah, like are we talking about like DLC or additional content? Because directs don't usually just have random commercials for games that have already come out, right? Usually it is, and also you're gonna get this bonus thing.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna say cap. Next up, Star Wars Hunters gets release date. Do you remember Star Wars Hunters?
I do not.
I vaguely remember it. It's like I believe like a PvP Star Wars game that's like a little bit smaller scale. That if you asked me, I would have said, "Oh yeah, surely that came out already." I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no, and that there's something going on over there. I think that might be Aspire. Next up, we got Professor Layton and the New World of Steam gameplay shown.
Okay, they're really proud of it.
Yeah, they write in here that they're really proud of it. I guess that's like somebody coming up, like a talking head comes up and says, "Oh, and we're really proud of this one."
Yes. Well, if they're proud about it, yeah, sure. I don't know.
I'll say
Maybe.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, ARMS 2 was announced. And they're also really proud of it, according to Kirkland.
I don't know. I don't really remember the ARMS 2. Or ARMS. I actually didn't play ARMS. Were you a big ARMS player?
I wanted to be.
Okay.
I was looking forward to ARMS because I was a big fan of Wii Boxing.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, ARMS just looks like the evolution of Wii Boxing. And then I started playing ARMS, and I was like, I'm not feeling this.
Sure, it's
this
a lot of
isn't my
long
jam.
arms, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
The arms they're too long.
Could that happen? Like,
I mean,
I don't.
Nintendo.
Yeah,
we're talking about Nintendo.
You're
Nintendo's
right.
weird.
Okay.
So it could happen. I'm gonna say cap though. I don't think we see it.
I don't think
I think
so
if we
either.
see ARMS 2, it'll be for the next Switch generation. I think they save ARMS 2 for the next console.
Yeah.
And part of that is due to our next news story, but we'll get there in a second. We'll do a couple more of these.
Yeah.
DLC for Fire Emblem Engage.
I could see that happening.
Yeah, I'm gonna say fact for that one. A second Bayonetta Origins game is announced.
I feel like that's a little too soon, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know enough about how they're treating Bayonetta Origins because they announced
Me neither.
they announced that the last one. I'll never remember the title for it. It was like Bayonetta Origins Cerveza or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was one of my picks.
For your
Yes.
fantasy thing, how did
Yeah.
it do for you?
I think it did well. I never
Okay.
played it, but I was like, I anytime I see Bayonetta, I'm like, okay, that might be a safe
Yeah.
bet here.
Well, Bayonetta 3 came out last fall.
Yep.
Bayonetta Origins came out this last spring. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a lot of Bayonetta coming through.
But I would think you would assess how the first one does before you greenlight a second one. And so I'm going to say cap. And then we can probably end with this one. Metaphor Re-Fantasio coming to Switch.
I don't know what that is.
So it is the new game from the Persona team that worked on Persona 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
That like has sort of that similar art style, right?
Okay.
Big new cool looking RPG. It was announced at the Xbox Game Showcase.
Yeah.
It's one that I'm excited for, and that Michael Hyatt, my roommate, is probably going crazy over.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no, just because like this game looks real good. I don't know.
I mean, SMT5 was a Switch exclusive, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah, but SMT. That's my thing though, is that was a Switch exclusive. This is coming to modern platforms.
Okay.
And like you would have to downgrade the fidelity of this a lot, which they could do. You know, plenty of games do that, but
I'm trying to remember what was the futuristic sci-fi one that came out like a year or two
Astral
ago?
Chain.
No, from Atlas. I'm blanking on it. I don't think that ever came to Switch.
You're talking about the one that we played a little bit last fall, and
Yeah,
then,
and it was like a sequel to like an old Atlas game as well.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I cannot remember the name of it to save my life. It was like was it Phantom something?
Soul Hackers.
Soul Hackers. That's what it was.
I'm trying. I don't know if Soul Hackers ever came to Switch, so it's really hard to predict what Atlas is gonna do when it comes to, I don't know, putting their games everywhere.
We have a couple more added from Barrett that I like here. Persona 3. Barrett mentions that Persona 3 Reload and 5 Tactica will be there, which I agree with. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then Barrett also mentions Donkey Kong 64 for the love of God. Which, please. That's my other thing is, what do they end up adding to Switch Online?
Yeah, that could be a good addition for
Probably
sure.
more Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah.
Right? Give people Golden Sun finally.
Yeah, they teased the Oracle games for Game Boy at the beginning of the year or late last year, and those haven't come yet, so I think those are a good probably update guarantee. But yeah, man, DK64, give it to me.
Give it to me.
Give it to me right now. I'm still getting my old Switch ready for my dad, that I'm going to gift it to him in a couple of months, and I would love if, when it's ready for him, it has DK64 on there, because he also loves it, and I would like for him to play it again.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Here's Dad loves DK64. And I love when you guys go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, you can go and get the show ad-free. And speaking of ads, let us tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need from yourself. I know this from experience, how often it just seems easier to care about others and to keep it moving. But when we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burnt out. Therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my very best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny.
And we're back with breaking news. Immortals of Aveum has been delayed. This comes directly from the dev. They write here, hey, Battle Mages. Your reactions to Immortals of Aveum over the past few weeks has been incredibly inspiring. From our trailer at the PlayStation Showcase and the recent hands-on previews to the latest gameplay reveal and being named one of the most anticipated games for Summer Game Fest. It's been amazing. As you know, this is our first game as a self-funded independent studio. We set out 5 years ago to ambitiously make an original Magic FPS in a new fantasy world. Along the way, we worked through a pandemic, built a new team, developed on Unreal Engine 5.1, and pushed the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Now, the finish line is in sight. The recent feedback of the game proves to us what we already felt, that Immortals of Aveum is something special. In order to realize our full vision, we're going to take a few extra weeks, making our new launch date Tuesday, August 22nd. This will give us time to further polish the game, finish optimizing on all platforms, and deliver a strong launch. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to you to get this right. Stay tuned for more info about the game in the coming weeks, and thank you for taking part in this journey with us, Brett and the Ascendant team. What's been your anticipation for Immortals of Aveum?
I really don't know. I don't know what to expect playing it, but the trailers have been really amazing. Sometimes I almost feel like it's too good to be true, and it looks way more interesting than I initially thought. But ultimately, like with this announcement, I'm thankful they are delaying it because it's a new IP, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a new thing, and really with anything like that, I would want to make sure that everything is perfect before it comes out.
Yeah, and I think that hits the nail on the head right there, right? The fact that it's a new game, new IP, EA original, right? This is something that, you know, I feel like a lot of people haven't had on their lists just because you look at the games that are coming out throughout the year and it's Armored Core 6, Spider-Man 2, right? Tears of the Kingdom, games that are big games from big IP that people already have this built-in anticipation for. Immortals of Aveum is coming through, and you're launching this thing in the middle of a packed year, and you want to get it right? You don't want to put it out in a state where people are going to pick on the bugs, people are going to pick on the performance, people are going to pick on parts of it that feel unfinished. You want it to come out and have that It Takes Two type reception, right?
Yeah.
Where that was another EA original that came out and was Game of the Year and did so well for what that program was.
Mm-hmm.
I think you really want to make sure that Immortals of Aveum comes out in the best state possible, right? To hopefully achieve that status. But of course, the one and only Greg Miller has gotten to play Immortals of Aveum already.
Hours of Immortals. Thank you, Barrett. Thank you. Hours of Immortals of Aveum. How are you, Blessing? It's
Doing
to
good. How
see
you
you.
doing?
Good.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Jerica. Hi, pleasure to meet
Yeah.
you. How are you? You're doing great. Yeah, so this is an interesting one because I can even watch
There he
my
is.
stance. I think hater isn't the right word, but I've been among the biggest, like, oh, this game? What's this game? Every time it pops up, I don't remember this. Oh, it's the Magic thing. And Mike's like, yeah, it's from Call of Duty, Call of Duty guys. It's Magic. And I'm like, I don't know. That's not my thing, right? And I've talked at length about, I think it looks like it's got the color palette of Godfall. I think it looks like it's Ghostwire Tokyo Magic. I think it sounds at points like Forspoken.
Yeah.
And it was that thing where it's like, cool, here are 3 games that missed the mark. This game clearly is going to miss the mark too. It feels like, right? Getting to go play it, get hands-on with it. I left that demo, and I kept saying, and I've said on the Gamescast, right, that I found it to be endearing. You know what I mean? There is something there. Brett talks about in his letter there, clearly we're on to something here. And I think that there is something there. They gave this great presentation, described that, hey, we're trying to make an MCU film. That's what we're doing here. We're having fun in this universe. We're building our own world. And getting in there, I thought the powers were enjoyable. Obviously, it is far range, shotgun approach, super fast, you know what I mean? You're like, okay, the same thing. But then there is some heart to the characters and the conversations. There is a world there and a story they're trying to tell there. I am excited to explore it. You're given, I don't know if you know this about us. We're called Puzzle Poppies.
Yeah.
And
You're both of you now.
we are, yeah.
Oh,
I forget
yeah,
what
yeah.
Escape Academy. Escape
DLC,
Academy.
yeah.
We just requested
Gotcha,
codes for the new DLC, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those, they have their own little thing of like, how do you get into that room to get the stuff using your powers? And I thought that was fun to go through and do. It is a studio's first game. I think there are a few things in it that I was like, that's not cool, right? Like you're running around like this the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really weird that you can't mantle. Like you'll jump and then hit the edge and like fall down. I'm like, all right, well, grab the edge. You got it doesn't matter. I'm bummed out by this delay. Yes, I think, of course, delay your game, take as much time as you need with it. But when they said, hey, this is July 20th, I think it was, right? I was like, oh, what a perfect time, right? You're out before the fall rush. I don't have to worry about Starfield being on top of you. I don't have to worry about Spider-Man. You're out before all that, and you're in a kind of a dead period there. Even though there are no dead periods, there's always amazing games. But in terms of the AAA, what are we looking for? What's going on? Pushing it to August, you start getting closer to all that stuff, right? Like you are getting closer to Starfield, which I don't think does you any favors. I thought this sounded like, even though there's no dead periods, it reminded me a little bit of what we talked about with Dying Light, Dead Island. Put those out at the beginning of the year. You have a chance to get people in there and to give it a shot because they're warming up for stuff. In the summer, when you're in that little bit of a summer lull where it used to only be Madden football, now you could get in there and go with it. August isn't the worst. Take the time you need, but I'm like, oof. I think more time and a dead period is better for this game.
Yeah. I mean, you look at July, right? I open up my Blessing Super Fun game release calendar, of course. And July, right in that July 20th spot, you would have been what you would have been around Viewfinder, right? Which is an indie title that
Sure.
like there's a lot of hype for it, right? But you're still talking about
But it's
something that
indie.
has that, that indie reception to it. There's Exoprimal, Remnant 2, right? There's Ratchet on PC and Disney Illusion Island. Like July packed, but I think there's a lot of it's a lot of games that speak directly to specific kinds of people, whereas you get into August and in that August 22nd spot, you're 3 days for Armored Core 6. You're, you're in the middle of other games like Atlas Fallen and Goodbye Volcano High and Sea of Stars, but then you're only a few weeks away from then Starfield and Liza P and Mortal Kombat 1 and Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, and you're getting way close to that fall rush of huge games that are coming through that I think would interfere with the hype.
And I realize it sounds like, you're still weeks away from all this stuff. I think when you actually get down there and you start talking about the dollars and cents of it, of like, okay, I know in September I'm about to buy Starfield, Lies of P, Mortal Kombat, Cyberpunk expand. Like, that's when maybe you are pinching pennies a bit more. Whereas if July, I think you get there and you have money, you haven't bought a game in a while, right? You get jumping and go. I don't know. I am tentatively excited for Immortals of Aveum. I do not think it's going to be a 9 out of 10. I'd be surprised if it's an 8. I think it's going to be one of those nice swimming in 7s. I'm going to have a fun time with it. Maybe I play it and I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? It burns out before it ever gets to the end and stuff. But I was looking forward in that time period because it seemed like a good place to sink it. But we'll have to wait and see now.
Yeah. Also, my super fun games calendar in the beginning of July, finishing Jedi Survivor. Also, maybe I'll finally start Dark Souls. That's what
You
July
got
is
too
looking
many
like to me
dreams,
now.
man. You're just going to play Street Fighter and you know it.
Oh man, I will play some Street Fighter. I can't wait to play more Street Fighter. For now, though, let's hop into our proper story number 2. Ubisoft says it should have held Mario plus Rabbids sequel for Nintendo's next console. This is Tom Ivan at VGC. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot has said that the publisher failed to heed Nintendo's advice by releasing Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope too soon. In an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, Guillemot suggested Nintendo had advised the company that it would be beneficial to release the sequel on Switch's successor. 2017's Switch exclusive Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle has reached over 7.5 million players, according to Ubisoft Milan creative director David Soliani. But despite strong reviews and a 5-year wait for its sequel, Sparks of Hope disappointed commercially following its release last October. Quote, despite excellent ratings and players' reception as well as an ambitious marketing plan, we were surprised by Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope underperformance in the final weeks of 2022 and early January, Ubisoft said earlier this year. While Guillemot said the quote the market is suffering a little bit with the inflation situation, he told GamesIndustry.biz the company should have been more patient with Sparks of Hope's release. Quote, I think it was a different issue with Mario, he said. We had already released a Mario Rabbids game on Switch, so by doing another, we had 2 similar experiences on one machine. On Nintendo, games like this never die. There are 25 Mario games on Switch. Nintendo was advised that it's better to do one iteration on each machine. We were a bit too early. We should have waited for the next console. He added, because you could play a great game, and we think it'll last for 10 years because we'll update it for the new machine that will come in the future, end quote. This is an interesting one because I think it helps shape the way that we talk about Nintendo releases and our anticipation. And I think now we can confidently say, y'all motherfuckers ain't getting a new Mario Kart on this platform.
Dang it.
You gotta wait until the next Switch. They're not gonna put out another Mario Kart when 8 Deluxe is selling 50 million.
I know.
It's still selling.
I mean, even then, maybe they just report Mario Kart 8.
Why not? You know? Don't get Nintendo ideas, Barry. But yeah, cool. And I think it makes sense, right? The reason why Sparks of Hope didn't hit those expectations, right? If you held off and waited for a Switch 2 and like that was the Mario and Rabbids game for the platform, yeah, I could see how that would do way better for you, right? Because that is how Nintendo has shaped their cadence. It goes back to the Reggie Fils-Aimé interview we did like about a year or so ago, where he kind of mentioned the same thing of, yeah, Nintendo has the strategy of putting out one iteration per platform, and that's how they keep things alive. That's how they keep things rolling, and it makes sense when reflected in sales.
Yep.
Story number 3. Square Enix staff have been asking the Final Fantasy head for a Final Fantasy VI remake. This is Chris Scullion at VGC. Square Enix staff members have reportedly been asking Final Fantasy's brand manager if a remake of Final Fantasy VI is coming. During an official roundtable discussion to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy brand manager and FF7 remake producer Yoshinori Kitase addressed the topic of a potential Final Fantasy VI remake. As translated by Genki_JPN, Kitase reportedly said, quote, I think Final Fantasy VI Remake would be difficult. Final Fantasy VII Remake is not yet finished, so I am not able to think about it. But there are many Final Fantasy VI fans inside the company, and they often ask me, when are we making 6? End quote. Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, who was also participating in the roundtable discussion, then reportedly explained that a remake of FF6 would be harder to do because, as a pixel-based game rather than a polygonal one, it would be more work to change the story and reimagine the game as a 3D experience. However, he did then ask Katase, quote, "Won't you release it a little sooner?" This caused Katase to laugh and say it isn't easy. You mentioned, you've played Final Fantasies in the past.
Yes.
Is FF6 one that you've messed around with at all?
Not at all. I was just thankful, once again, just the Final Fantasy VII remake that, we're all excited about too, and is going to have multiple games. Because I never played it either. Like, that was when I was a little derpy kid and, probably just couldn't figure out how to play it at the time. And I was like, I'd rather play Spyro, whatever was out. But with Final Fantasy VI, like, I just looked up to see, like, get a frame of reference, and coming from it's 2D, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, coming from a 2D to a completely different remake and looking super modern I couldn't imagine like how much more time that would take.
For sure.
But it seems that there's a lot of fans for it.
Oh, it's beloved, right? Like I think it was Tim who I was talking to on the show that mentioned that like it's one of the best ones. And I think people would go crazy for a remake, but to the point made here, right? Like, yeah, it's 2D. Translating that pixel-based game into a 3D space would be difficult. Granted, like, you could say the same thing about FF7. Like, sure, FF7 is 3D, but it's a different kind of 3D.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And y'all made that happen. I feel like there's a similar sort of translation there. But
or maybe like stick with the style, but just modernize it would be,
like an HD 2D type thing.
Yeah, I don't know. That might make people angry, but I would play that too.
Yeah.
Any way to play older games that I missed out on, I'm a big fan of.
1000%. I'm right there with you. Our final news story. Story number 4. Jeff Keighley acknowledges Summer Game Fest diversity criticism. This is Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicle. Jeff Keighley has responded to criticism regarding a lack of representation at this month's Summer Game Fest showcase. Featuring world premieres, live gameplay demos, and announcements, the high-profile event was billed as the global fan celebration of what's next in video games. But one thing that was conspicuously absent during the near 2-hour event, which took place in front of a live audience at the YouTube Theater in California and was live streamed to millions of... Did Tim Geddes write this? Live streamed to millions of viewers, was the presence of any women on stage. In an interview with CBC, event producer and host Jeff Keighley said Melanie Liburd, the actor who plays Alan Wake 2's co-lead protagonist, Saga Anderson, was due to take part in the show, but ultimately couldn't because of scheduling conflicts. Quote, "I think generally we do a pretty good job with diversity in our shows. That was something that's a fair flag," he said. We also want to be authentic to the games that are being presented on the show and the developers that are making them. So yeah, I think we're conscious of it," end quote. According to U.S.-based research from Circana, formerly known as the NPD Group, so far this year, women account for 47% of total console game players, half of all PC game players, and 54% of mobile game players. This was a conversation that was happening, online over the past week, right? Since we got that Summer Game Fest showcase. Were you online for this? Did you pay attention to the conversation?
I saw a little bit of it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, like, I've watched. This was the first year I wasn't able to watch like all the streams back to back to back and in their entirety. But I'll always say like I enjoy those segments where they have female game developers and like talking about their games. I can't get enough of that. I always think like if there's any lady working on your game, I want to hear from her.
Yeah.
And more exposure, the better. Like if anything, like every year gets a little bit better. And with this, I don't really have an answer for it for this year's.
Yeah. It's been one of those conversations that I've seen some of the back and forth on, right? And like I think some of the points made, right, to Jeff's credit is that Jeff was having like a lot of people that are either leads or higher ups or whatever, like on stage to talk about their games and all that stuff. But I don't feel like that's enough of an excuse, right? Like I think there are still ways you gotta buck the trend because there are reasons why these are the same people or the same types of people that are leading the games, right? It's because there isn't the visibility of women who are working in games or women that are rising up through the ranks getting to lead these projects and all that stuff. I think the more you place different types of people in front of the audience, the more that those groups of people feel empowered to want to enter the space, right?
For
like
sure.
if I'm watching content and all the content are people that don't look like me, don't sound like me, or from a different culture from me, I might not be as interested in the content, or I might not feel as enabled to want to break through and actually enter that space,
sure.
right? But if you start to place those people in front, right? Like I understand the idea from Jeff of, man, like the one person we had pulled out,
I know.
but like why was it only one person, right? And like even for you as Jeff, right? Do you need to host every event? Could you maybe pull somebody else to host Summer Game Fest while you do Game Awards, right? Like how can you spread the love? How can you uplift more and different kinds of voices to actually be front and center on these stages that mean a lot to people that have a big audience? I think for me, that's the big thing here that could be done better. And I hope to see Jeff do better in the future.
Yeah.
But Jerica, the future is just so far away. If I want to know what's coming out to mom and grop shops today, where would I look?
The official list of upcoming software across each and every platform as listed by the KindaFunny Games Daily Show host each and every weekday.
Yeah. Out today, we got Aliens Dark Descent on everything, Crash Team Rumble on PS5, Xbox Series X, PS4, and Xbox One, Rogue Legacy 2 on PS5 and PS4, The Elder Scrolls Online Necrome for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, Fireball Wizard for PC and mobile, The Last Hero of Nostalgia for PS4 and Switch, and then the DLC for that game, The Rise of Evil, for everything. New dates for you: Tower of Fantasy for PS4 and PS5 launches August 8th. Biden Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remastered launches September 14th on Switch. Hammerwatch 2 launches August 15th on PC. And Let's School 1.0 launches July 27th on PC. Deal of the day for you: these games are coming soon to Xbox Game Pass. You're getting Need for Speed Unbound, The Bookwalker, Bramble, The Mountain King, Fist Forged in Shadow Torch, Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town, Arcade Paradise, and then Sword and Fairy Together Forever. Now it's time for KindaFunny.com/you're wrong, where you write in, let us know what we got wrong as we got it wrong, so we can correct it for those watching later on YouTube and listening later on podcast services around the globe. It's Tori's thing. It's Tori's thing, right? So it says Pikmin has been on Switch before, as Pikmin 3 got a deluxe release in 2020. I totally forgot about that.
Me too.
Banner SN mentions that Soul Hackers 2 is not on Switch. Rudder mentions that Fire Emblem Engage DLC has already released, but I think there could be the possibility of more DLC, or not, unless they've said not, and then in that case, there's not the possibility. Let's see here. Nano says it's not nostalgia, it's nostalgia or nostalgia. I'm gonna call it nostalgia because it looks like that. And that's it. Oh, here we go. Nano says there were 5 farming games announced.
Okay.
Actually, no, that might affect my prediction there. You know what? I say they up the ante. I think we get one more farming game than
All
we
right,
did the last
let's go.
time. Yeah.
Wow.
No, we farming, baby. Tomorrow's hosts for KindaFunny Games Day, they're going to be Greg and the one and only Jerica, a.k.a. Jerkachu.
I'm back again.
Back at it like a bad habit. Of course, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. And again, where can people find your stuff if they want to follow your podcast?
Absolutely. Follow us on JK Games Podcasts on all the socials. And then, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Jerkachu, Jerkchu, like Pikachu, Jerka. Like, I have a niece that calls me Jerka, and it was cute. So I was like, Jerkachu.
Honestly, that's
It's like
great.
Pokemon.
Hell yeah.
Easy.
Of course, if you're watching this live, right after this is a brand new episode of The Blessing Show. So hop on over for the premiere and watch along with people in chat. That'll be up for everybody over on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames. But of course, this has been KindaFunny Games Daily, each and every weekday live right here on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames and twitch.tv/KindaFunnyGames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. Till next time, game daily.